why would I become a Republican? How do you message that in any way to reach out to those who are disinclined to sign up for the Republican Party?
Because in the end, what people want is freedom and opportunity. You don't get that through the mighty hand of the government. I think as a kid, when I grew up in Delavan, nobody I knew in my class said, someday my goal is to grow up and become dependent in the government. And in the same way, for all the great people I've met who've immigrated from other countries, be it Mexico or India or Germany or anywhere else, all those folks I know who are successful small business owners don't say to me that they came here because they want to become dependent in America. No, the American dream is, given a chance, given an opportunity, the great thing about this country, greater than just about any country in the world, is that you have an equal opportunity, but the outcome's up to you. The problem is too many Americans right now don't have that equal opportunity, and we should be making the case about how we're going to make it easier to create a job, easier to get in the workforce, easier to get the skills that they need to fill those jobs. We're not going to artificially raise things.
That's not an uncommon argument for many Republicans that I have heard in the past, saying this is about empowering people, not about raising benefits and making them dependent. But it hasn't worked. What makes this expand the Republican Party, which desperately needs to bring in something other than what's really been a shrinking base in your party?
There's a great answer talking about freedom and what the truth is about true opportunity. And she's like, no. It's not an uncommon argument, but this really doesn't expand. It doesn't get the job done. Pretty much, yeah, you say that. I don't accept your answer. Remember, he won, and he survived a recall effort. Nonetheless, how do you sell freedom? You may wonder, Crane, why do you say Republicans? Why are you defending? It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about the truth and messaging of what's going on and how they're messaging policies and breaking that down to see what the truth is. And how they're messaging policies is to say that people that do believe in freedom and the free market are not compassionate toward others. Well, that's a ridiculous argument because, I mean, if we go that route, we've seen the devastation of socialism. We've seen it even on a minor scale with President Obama, which has been very destructive relatively to us. I mean, his policies have not worked. And we see that stimulus not work. Obamacare doesn't work. Dodd-Frank doesn't work. Actually incorporated and legislated too big to fail. It doesn't work. It's the government's manipulation. Why on earth would somebody buy that? Why? Reagan won this argument, didn't he? I mean, Kennedy agreed, tax cuts, and yeah, but it's still going to be the message. Roll it.
Back from sunny Hawaii, President Obama returned to a much colder and less friendly Washington, D.C. this morning, a fitting backdrop as he gears up for the first fight of 2014, extending unemployment benefits which expired in December for 1.3 million Americans who have been out of work for 6 months or longer. In his weekly media message, Mr. Obama blamed Republicans for leaving those benefits out of last month's budget deal.
And denying families that security is just plain cruel. We're a better country than that.
The president will also renew his call for an increase in the minimum wage in his State of the Union address, another piece of a Democratic strategy designed to paint Republicans as the party of the rich ahead of the fall elections.
So that's why. Now you see the minimum wage law and who it impacts and the relatively small amount of folks in the workforce who are earning that. I think it's 2.7%. And then the majority of those come from homes that are $53,000 a year or more. And we've seen the destructive quality of putting a higher price on work. You're going to get less work because you've artificially put a price in that's not measured on the market of supply and demand and skill set. So, again, we're fighting emotion. Conservatives are, certainly. And we're also fighting a state that wants to be your daddy and say things that are fair, wants to be your God. You know that. Remember, this is not about the state versus the individual. It's about the state versus God. God is where we get our rights. He created us. We allow the state to protect our rights. But God created us. Well, the state doesn't protect the rights of the unborn, not yet. But we're getting closer. But I digress. Dr. Charles Krauthammer weighed in on the unemployment benefit insurance debate that was currently taking place And now, as you heard from the great Chad Groening over at onenewsnow.com, American Family News, it seems to be that they're going to extend these things. But here's what Dr. Charles Krauthammer said last night, which I found to be very interesting because he identified what this is becoming. Roll it.
It shouldn't be about whether it increases the deficit or not. It's a fairly small amount of money, and that's not the core issue. The core issue is creating an entitlement. This has never been considered an entitlement. And you go down to this road, Sperling says now is not the time. 4.5 years into a recovery, at least as defined by the administration itself, is not the time. If not now, then when? I mean, what we're going to end up with a European level of unemployment, chronic unemployment, subsidized. And the fact is that if you subsidize apples, you get more apples. If you subsidize unemployment, you get more of it. And that's what the economic studies show. It's not that people are lazy. It shows that if you have unemployment insurance, then you can make choices which would allow you to turn down a job that perhaps isn't exactly what you want. The vast majority of the unemployed want a job. And the problem is the state of the economy.
I think, well, number one, I think the man's brilliant. He went on to give the Republicans the advice on what to do exactly, and which was a combination of, yeah, we'll do it this time, but we end it, and we make sure that it ends so it's not a recurring theme and it doesn't become part of an entitlement program. Obama's attack on workers. Arnold Allard yesterday was on the program and wrote a great piece on amnesty. I posted it up on the Facebook page, and we'll be posting our interview after the show. But he wrote a great article today called Obama's, thank you, attack on workers. And he just details what the realities are of raising the minimum wage and how the realities of what was promised with Obamacare and how the average increase in premiums, it's not going down. It's going to go up 41%. He detailed exactly what these policies do. Now, why wouldn't people care about that? Why wouldn't people care about what the reality is of these policies? The only way people don't care about something is if they're insulated from feeling the direct impact it has. And we talked about this yesterday with the consumer and provider, doctor, patient, that would be provider and consumer, and how things are askew. We've talked about how people can get involved. We've talked about the fact that we are now seeing people in Illinois conceal and carry. It's a very popular. People are becoming gun owners. Because if you take a policy, take gun control. If you talk to people that are experiencing a high level of insecurity and crime, sooner or later, they're going to come to the conclusion that they believe in, maybe not themselves, but they believe in legal gun ownership. They believe in the Second Amendment. It's the reality of the policy. That's what we have to deal with, the reality of the policy. Now, there's a lot of things we can do to block the reality. We do it in life, in the sense of, I bring up Kaylee Anthony, and the alleged killer was Casey Anthony, and people were outraged after she was not determined to be guilty by a jury. They don't like child death. Nobody does. Yet we do have legal abortion in this country, and we do have the issue framed as a woman's right, and anybody who wants to identify that life begins at conception is somehow a flat earther at times. That's how the media portrays them. It's a war on women if you believe in protecting the life of the child. Or you move to advanced measures that would put medical medical resources in place where these abortions were being performed that could potentially save the life of the mother if the abortion is obviously going on and going through. My point is this. The reason people are able to buy liberalism is because they're not under liberalism. They're not the child in the womb. They were, but they're not now. So what we have to do is message the truth. Our message isn't wrong. And we certainly should not be quiet. We need to be salt and light. We need to speak truth and love. Remind people that they are not objects, but they are creations, and God created them, and He loves them right where they're at. He gave His only begotten Son for their salvation, our salvation. We don't say that looking down and pointing. We say it pointing up to God and saying, thank you, Jesus. Live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart. Always keep the faith in Jesus Christ. Crane Durham's nothing but truth. AFR Talk. Go to the Facebook page. AFR Talk.